Okay, so now we are going to talk about Module 2, Lesson 3 for College Prep Math 2. This is going to be just kind of more on solving equations. In previous lessons, we've talked about the addition property of equality, which says you can add or subtract the same number to both sides of an equation and have it still be true. We talked about the multiplication property of equality, which says we can multiply or divide an equation by the same non-zero number, and it will still be true, right? So we're going to use those again, but we're definitely going to use them in more complicated situations now, just equations that have a little more going on, and we're going to use both potentially in the same equation. But our goal is going to be the same as it was before. We're going to be solving for our variables. So our goal is still the same. Our goal is to get our variable on one side by itself in order to get our solution. So we're going to kind of use 3 steps to get through this, right? Our first step is going to be just to clean up our equations. So clean up both sides of the equations. And when I say clean up, what I mean is we want to simplify them as much as possible. Okay, so this is where we'll use our skills that we practiced in Lesson 2. We'll need to use the distributive property sometimes to get rid of parentheses. We'll need to combine like terms, and that's the process we'll go through to clean up both sides. It just means simplify the expressions on both sides of our equation. And then we want to collect our like terms. Okay, and what this means is we're going to use our addition property of equality to get all of our variables onto one side and all of our constant terms onto the other side. So, and which side do they go to doesn't really matter. We'll see some examples where we kind of take our x's to the left, where we take our x's to the right. Doesn't really matter. We just want our x's on one side, and then we want our constants on the other side. And once we have that done, we won't always have to do step 3, but usually we will either multiply or potentially divide. Most of the time it's divide to finish up. Okay, so those are the kind of the 3 steps we're going to go through here in this equation solving process. Clean everything up on both sides, then we start our algebra. We collect our like terms. We want to get all of our variables onto one side, all of our constants onto the other side, and then when we're done with that, we can multiply or divide our equation to finish up. Okay, so let's look at a few examples of this. So we'll start fairly simple. We won't always have to do all 3 of these steps, so this will be an example where we don't necessarily have to do all of the steps, but still got to start somewhere, so we'll start with a fairly simple one. Okay, so if we're going to go through our process here, our first step says to clean up both sides of the equation. Okay, and we can definitely do some cleanup here because these terms over here on the left side are like. If we have the same variable parts on all of our terms, they're like terms, and we can put them together. So we want to do this. We want to do 13 minus 17. My signs are different here, so I'm going to subtract. So 17 minus 13 is 4. And I'm going to take the sign of the bigger one. 17's bigger, 17's negative, so my answer is going to be negative. And when we combine like terms, variable part just doesn't change. Okay, and then we'll continue on. Our next step says to collect like terms, but this is what I was saying about not necessarily having to do all of these steps. What that collect like terms means is we want to get all of our variables on one side, all of our constants on the other side. Worked out here that was already done for us. This is all of my variable terms. This is all of my constant terms. So step 2 is kind of done for us. Didn't have to really do any work there. So step 3, remember our goal here is to get the w by itself on one side, and so we're going to do that by dividing. We want to get rid of this multiplication. We're going to divide by negative 4. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is equal to 1, and that's what we want. And remember, when you're using these properties of equality, if you do something to one side, you need to do something, the exact same thing to the other side to keep the equation balanced. So those minus 4's are gone, leaves you with the w by itself. That's what we wanted. Here, we know when our signs are different and we're dividing, our answer is going to be negative, and then 32 divided by 4 is 8. So negative 8 is our answer there. Okay? Let's look at another one. So use another one that we maybe don't have to do all of the steps on. Okay, so we're going to solve for z here. So I want to take this equation, I want to solve it for z. I'm going to go through my steps. My first step is to clean up both sides of my equations, and I can definitely do some of that. These terms over here are both constants, and so we can just work it out. That's going to be our first step here, 7 minus 10. If you want, you can always change it to plus a negative, right? But the key thing here is any way you look at it, you want to think of these as having different signs. So 10 minus 7, we're going to subtract those and get 3. And then we're going to take the sign of the larger one. 10's larger, so that's going to be negative. Okay, and so we can't really do anything on the right because our terms are not like there. So that's all the cleanup that we can do. So the next step is to collect our like terms while our constants are over here on the left. And our z term is over here on the right. So we can't do step 2. There's no like terms to collect. They're already collected. So we're good there. And so we're on to step 3. We want to multiply or divide to finish up. Over here I have a division. Remember, in general, when we're using these properties of equality, whatever operation we have, we kind of use the opposite operation to clear it out. So if I want to get rid of this division, I'm going to multiply. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is equal to 1. Those will cancel. And then if I do it to one side, I need to do it to both sides in order to, keep the equation balanced. It's what the properties of equality do for us. They let us multiply, divide on both sides as long as we do the same thing to both sides. And we're not using a 0. So those will cancel over there, leave us the z by itself. You'll notice here in this problem, my variable's on the right. It's fine. We're not trying to get the variable on the right or left in particular. What we're trying to accomplish here is we're trying to get the variable by itself on one side. It doesn't matter which side, just want it to be by itself. And we've accomplished that, so we're good. Over here on the right, negative times a negative, signs are the same. Our answer is positive, and then 4 times 3 is 12. And we've got it. Okay? So we haven't had to move things from one side to the other yet. Let's look at some where we do now. Okay, and we'll start simple and we'll get more complicated as we go. So let's just say we have okay, so 5x minus 20 equals 0 is our equation that we're going to solve next. So first step is to clean it up as much as possible. And this is where it's easy to maybe try to do too much. There's just no cleanup that I can do. Remember, if my terms are not like, and this one's got an x and this one is a constant, right? You can't put them together. So you can't combine these. We're just kind of stuck at this point. Okay, so first step, can't really do much. Okay, so next step is to collect our like terms. That means we want to get all of our variables terms onto one side, all our constant terms onto the other side. So I'm going to move, either of these terms would be fine. I'm just going to move the constant term here. So I've got a minus 20. Remember, whatever operation we have, in this case subtraction, using the opposite operation will let you kind of undo it. So I'm just going to add 20, and if I do it to one side, I've got to do it to the other side as well. So those 20s are gone. Okay. And now we're done with our step 2. We've got our x terms on one side, our constant terms on the other side. We've collected our like terms. So last, we're going to multiply or divide to finish up. I have a multiplication here. So I'm going to divide. 5 divided by 5 is equal to 1. Those will cancel each other off. And then 20 divided by 5 on the right side gives me a 4. And x is by itself. Again, when I'm asked to solve, that's my goal, is to get that x on one side by itself. Accomplish that goal. We are done. Okay, so let's look at a problem now where we have more steps to it. And we're going to have to remember some of our process that we practiced in lesson 2 here to clean this up. So if I'm looking at this equation, I'm just going to go through my same 3 steps I've been going through on all of these problems. My first step is, clean it up as much as possible, and we can definitely do some of that. I want to distribute this 3 across the parentheses, something we learned in lesson 2, how to use the distributive property to deal with situations like this. So that's going to get us started in our cleanup process. So 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times negative 9. Okay, Okay, not much I can do on the right since I just have that one term over there. Okay, so, and then there's no like terms over here on the left, so there's nothing else I can do on the left. So there's my first step. I've got my like terms collected. So next I got my expression simplified. Now I'm ready to collect my like terms. That's going to be my next step. I want to get all my variable terms on one side, all my constant terms on the other side. So when I look at this, there's several ways to approach this. A lot of people would move the 9y. I would not recommend that because look at this minus 27. This is my only constant in this entire problem. My only term that doesn't have any variables. So this is already, if I can get this by itself, I'm in great shape. So I'm going to move this 18y away. To get rid of this 18y, I'm going to subtract 18y because 18y minus 18y is equal to 0. If I do it to one side, I've got to do it to the other side as well. Okay, that'll get rid of those. Okay, and then we can put these together. So 9 minus 18, my signs are different. I'm going to subtract and get 9 and then take the sign of the bigger one. 18 is bigger and 18 is negative, so my answer is going to be negative. Okay, and you'll notice I've got my numbers on one side and my variables on the other side, and that's my goal when we say that we're collecting our like terms. We've done that. Okay, now I certainly could have gotten the y's on the left and constants on the right. Would have been an extra step though, would have been more work. So this is better in my opinion. So finally we want to multiply or divide to finish up and get that y by itself, trying to get rid of this minus 9. Negative 9 divided by negative 9 is equal to 1. If I do it on one side, I've got to do it on the other side as well. Those are gone. Negative divided by negative is going to be a positive, right? And then 27 divided by 9 is 3. Okay, so a little more going on in that one, but that's a good example. Okay, let's try one more. Sorry, one more second to track down one more problem here. Okay, so let's do one where we maybe have to do a couple of steps of cleanup at the beginning. And we have a little bit of cleanup on both sides. So first step is clean up as much as we can. Now the right side's pretty easy to clean up. Those are just numbers, but they are like, so we do want to put those things together. So that'll give me 31. On the left, a little more to do to clean this up. We can distribute across our parentheses there. So negative 7 times x is negative 7x. Negative 7 times positive 1 is negative 7. We'll bring that negative 11 on down, and then there's still some more cleanup to do because these terms that we've got over here on the left, the negative 7 and the negative 11, are like, so we can add those together. Signs are the same. They're both negative numbers, so 7 and 11 is 18. And we bring that negative sign on down. Okay, so good start. We got everything cleaned up. Nothing else we can do. Don't try to put these together. That you can't because they're not like, right? So next step is to collect our like terms. So we want to get all of our x's on the one side, all of our numbers onto the other side. I don't want to move this x term because it's my only one, right? It's already isolated. That's good. We want that. So we want to get rid of this minus 18. Get rid of subtraction, we're going to add. That'll get rid of those. Add these up. Okay. And our x's on the left, constants on the right. That's what we want there. Okay. And then our last step is multiply or divide as we need to clean it up. Get the x on one side by itself. That's our goal when we're solving these equations. So I'm going to divide. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is equal to 1. Those cancel. That's what we wanted. Over here on the right, signs are different. When we're dividing and our signs are different, going to get a negative, and 49 divided by 7 is 7. And we got it. Okay, so hopefully that's enough to help you get started with this. This equation solving stuff, it can seem a little overwhelming at first, but it's a really important skill to not only know, but to be good at, because it's not going to go away. We're going to use it in this entire course. You'll certainly use it in your next math classes as well. So very important skill to know and remember for the future. We'll use it a lot as we go forward. Let me know if you have any questions, though.